name's Ryan and welcome to Teach Me in 20. Each week I'll release a new podcast where I get to speak with awesome people who have something new to teach me that I know nothing about. If, like me, you're naturally curious about everything, this could be the podcast for you. So come along for the ride. It'll only cost you 20 minutes. Hello and welcome to this episode of Teach Me in 20. Today we're joined by Mandy McEvoy. Mandy was a political advisor to Julie Bishop, who of course is a very well-known name in Australian politics, having only just retired earlier this year. Mandy joins us to share what it's like to be a political advisor and also talks about the current Australian political climate. Mandy, welcome.
Thanks, Karis, and congratulations on the new initiative of your podcast, Teach Me in 20. Really excited to be here and having a chat with you today.
Thank you. So you were the advisor to Julie Bishop?
I was an advisor to
How
Julie.
How long was that for?
That was for just under 2 years. So we were in opposition. I joined the team here in Perth in 2011. Mm-hmm. So Julie was she was 6 months into having the portfolios of foreign affairs and trade, which were a specific interest to me. So she was the shadow minister for foreign affairs and trade. And the most interesting thing about the job was obviously the politics. I've been born into a family of, that are fairly well affiliated in politics. Mum was in local government for 20 odd years, but we were always fairly involved in the Liberal Party. So I knew a little bit about it, but until you get into it, you don't really know. And of course, added to that was the layer of the fact that it was the first of those sort of tumultuous times of changing leaders. So it was Rudd to Gillard, back to Rudd. So whilst we were in opposition, we were always on a knife edge of an election being called because of the machinations of what was going on in the Labor Party and their instability, which I guess is what we've had in the Liberal Party in the last few years.
Or just Australian politics in general.
Yeah.
So how did you get into it? You mentioned, politics was growing up in your family. I'm sure there was lots of heated dinner table discussions.
Yeah, we were always pretty much on the same side in our family. So there wasn't a lot of conjecture there, but you still have, differing opinions, and that comes with intergenerational change, I guess. But it wasn't nepotism so much, but I was, I knew Julie. I'd known Julie before she got into politics when she was she was the first female managing director of a law firm in Australia. So she was at Clayton Utz. No, I didn't work for her, no. But she was going out with the Lord Mayor at the time, Peter Nattrass, and I'd known Peter and his family for a long, long time. So I was introduced to Julie through mutual sort of family friends and things like that, and it was invited to apply for joining her. So
awesome.
yeah.
I'm sure that was it a surprise or?
Oh, look, it was something I'd entertained for a little while, but I'd been living in Melbourne for 10 years, and I thought it was time to get back to Perth, and this was an opportunity to do that and to still do some travel. Obviously, with federal politics, you're in Canberra a fair bit, which I was. It wasn't something I gave a lot of thought to. I kind of maybe thought it was going to be part of my career destiny at some stage. So when I got there, I wasn't that surprised, nor were most of my friends.
Did you ever think about going in office yourself?
I had. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't. But I probably got a few too many skeletons in the closet, Karis, to get into politics. Imagine them airing all my dirty laundry. My goodness, I've always seen myself as better in the back stalls and on the policy sort of side.
Speaking of stalls, I don't think you could be worse than the ScoMo thing that's going around at the moment and the McDonald's store. Anyway, but I get it. It's not a fun job.
Well, it's not. You're really putting yourself front and centre. And at the end of the day, I think the people behind the scenes do most of the hard work anyway, so I wanted to be on that side.
Spoken like a true advisor.
Well, I was particularly interested in AusAid and where that was headed, and got to do some good work with that and meet some really interesting people. So, that rather than just all the politicking, I enjoyed the actual work itself.
So you mentioned about the travel, and I mean, obviously Perth is just so isolated.
Oh boy!
And you probably spend most of your time in Canberra.
The sitting weeks. There's 20 odd sitting weeks, slightly more. 20 odd sitting weeks a a year. They're not always in Canberra, but I tell you, when they are working long hours.
So describe a normal day when you're in Canberra.
Wow, we would, again, I was working for a fairly high-profile, albeit shadow minister, but, certainly one of the most high-profile Liberal politicians, and a complete workaholic, to her credit, I guess. So we'd be in there at, no later than 7:30 on a Monday morning. So we'd fly from Perth to Canberra on a Sunday afternoon. We usually land in quite late on a Sunday and then straight to work on Monday. And there'd be, at least 10 12-hour days in the office every day. So you didn't have much of a life. I didn't get to see much of Canberra. I do remember actually Julie couldn't make a commitment quite last minute to see the Perth College girls that had come over to Canberra for a school tour, and they were at the War Memorial. And so last minute I was dispatched out there, and it was just an incredible. If you're ever in Canberra, you really must get to the War Museum. But aside from that, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't see much of Canberra.
Just in an office or
an office or the share house, and typically that's how all the staffers make up their fairly pitiful allowances is travel. So you get a travel allowance to stay in a place, and you might rent a big 3 or 4 bedroom place, and they might have bunk beds, and there might be 7 odd staffers staying in the one place. So that's you sort of made your money up that way.
Okay.
Your salaries up. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to get to Canberra. It is on the list.
There's some beautiful food and wine scene too in Canberra nowadays. Ooh. Really good.
They got wineries there.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
I mean,
but some really cool restaurants and things that are doing some good things. So Canberra's cool again. Well, cool again. I don't know if it was ever cool to say it again, but it is the ultimate FIFO town when you think about it.
I mean, you wouldn't have had much of a social life as well. Is that sort of the life of politics? You just work and... Yeah,
look, there were always events that you were invited, or that the shadow minister was invited to, that you would shadow her to. Yep. So, she wouldn't go to an event without at least one advisor, whether it was to hold a handbag, take a photo, or record what she was saying. It's just...
Sign autograph.
Yeah, that sort of thing. But no, so there was the social aspect of that. But you were always working, you were always making sure that she was okay and things were going to plan and things. So, yeah, it wasn't a particularly social job.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed the work that I did.
Because you mentioned you were able to help Aussie.
I was able to work in that sector a little bit, and work on helping the resurrected Colombo plan.
What was that?
Which is the international exchange student between universities.
Okay.
And it was started back in the 60s and then resurrected by Julie.
Oh, wow.
And it's a fantastic initiative, and also to work on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was abolished when Trump came in. But, I got to do some work on that too. So that was the trade sort of side, and then the foreign affairs and aid side. So, yeah, it was interesting. And then, of course, helping constituents back here in Perth. Part of my job was, 16 odd portfolios back here. So if constituents had problems there, then they'd come into the office or write to the office, and you'd deal with those as well. So there was never a dull day.
Yeah, it's just like taking off one hat, putting on another.
Yeah.
Where did you enjoy most travelling?
Travelling with her was only really to Canberra.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe internationally.
No, again, we were in opposition.
Okay.
So as much as foreign affairs and trade, they're fairly bipartisan portfolios. You don't see them arguing against each other. Like Penny Wong at the moment is the shadow minister for that. She won't typically come out and say against Maurice Payne, who took over from Julie when Julie stood aside. So, yeah, it's not us versus them, Liberal versus Labor with trade and foreign affairs and things. They typically on the same page. Yeah. But Julie did go to a few events overseas, but nothing like what her role was when she was actually foreign minister, when we were in government.
So you were there...
I'm gone by then. couldn't hold on.
What made you want to leave?
A whole heap of things. My father passed away quite tragically whilst I was working for Julie, and I was unable to travel there for quite some time when he was in ICU for 5 weeks. Yeah. So that restricted my job. I didn't take many days off, but it just restricted what I could do. Yeah, and it made me rethink what I was doing. Mm-hmm. As I said, I loved the work that I did, but I didn't enjoy the environment I was in for a whole host of reasons. But people used to say to me, just hold on, you'll get into government at the next election, which they did. But, even then I don't think that things were great, and the political environment just didn't really suit me. The actual politics of politicking, which is ironic because you'd think I would understand a little bit about that. But I preferred the quieter life. So,
I mean, after all that time, no wonder. But speaking of the political climate, do you still follow the Australian politics?
Yeah, I do. I think it'll always be in me. But I guess like a lot of people my age, it's we're not disassociated. We're just a bit dismayed at where politics has gone. And I think, to strip it right back to basics, taking the personalities out of it, and there's some huge personalities and egos in politics. My God, I had 12 years in investment banking and financial markets, as the prime of my career, and there's more ego in politics than there was in that. But
which is a shame. I feel like people who have an ego or want power should never be in power.
Yeah, but they're going to be the ones that strive for it the most.
But it's just, they're not always, well, not all, but just they shouldn't all,
Yeah, well, there's the whole thing about the career politicians, and this is something that we still see, and it'd be great to try and curtail this. But by career politicians, I mean those that go from, say, school or university into working for a politician. So there'll be, an elected officer or an advisor, and they'll work their way through, and then they'll want to stand when their member stands aside or gets shunted. So they're the ones that have never really had another job, and that goes for the majority of our current day politicians. The Labor side, a lot of them came up through the trade union movement and then into electoral offices, and the same with a lot of the Libs. They might go and do law degrees or economics degrees, or they don't even have to have done a degree to get a role in these offices and then progress there. But I think the best people in politics are those that have run small businesses, or those that have worked even, I'm not anti-corporation, they could have gone and worked for big organisations, and they've got more of a view outside of politics.
Yeah.
And I think that they're the better politicians. But back to what's happening today is I think that the lines between politics have been blurred somewhat. So, you've got the centre-right and you've got the centre-left, and at the moment I don't find that the Liberal Party is really representing me. I think I would characterise as centre-left socially, so quite progressive on that side, and then centre-right fiscally, and there really isn't a party that represents me. I often say we'd like to exhume Don Chipp. You wouldn't even remember who Don Chipp is, but he was the founder of the Democrats. So,
I definitely think I'm a swing voter.
Okay.
And right now, I'm just like, really? We have to pick for these? Out of these? Do we have to have any of these guys?
Yeah. And at the same time, you want to exercise your democratic right, and you don't, and you appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we spoke, women in Saudi Arabia don't even get the, or some other countries around the world don't even get the chance to vote. And here's me, I'm like, I don't come voting for anyone.
Because look what they've put forward.
But I also think, the younger generation, we just don't give a crap about politics anymore. It's just...
Well, you don't see...
I think, my parents' day, they were really like, getting around it. And now you'd ask people, I think I asked... an 18-year-old Matt's cousin the other day, or who she's voting for. She's like, who's running? I have no idea who's even in.
Was she enrolled to vote though? That's a start.
Yeah, I think they enrolled it. But she's like, I'll just ask my mum.
Yeah,
and it's just, we just don't care.
But perhaps the media has a little bit to do with that.
Yeah.
Given this 24-hour news cycle, which really has only been around for maybe the last 2 elections, but more so now, where we're just inundated with politics. And as much as I think the politicians dumb it down, they often dumb it down for the media. Right. So it's it's a 3-minute grab given to you on Channel 7 or ABC Radio or whatever your medium is, that's trying to pack in what the pollies are saying. And I think that the onus is on us to do our own research. So it's to call the pollies or have a look at their website and actually ask them what they stand for and those sorts of things. That's grassroots type of politics that was around your folks, and even in my day and age, we knew local members of politics, whether they be local council, state government or federal government, because they would be around. These days they're not, and they rely on the TV and radio to get their messages across. And I think
media.
they're lost, and I think therefore, people are just tuning out because it's just the same sort of rhetoric, all the time.
Yeah.
And on top of that is that, the young kids today don't think that they're being represented. There's not a lot of young people in politics,
Yeah, definitely. The stuff that we care about, they're just not.
Yeah, you're not caring about tax.
Yeah.
Superannuation. God, you've got, 40
Negative
years to
gearing.
you.
We can't even afford a house.
That's right. Those things aren't, climate change is most important. House affordability, those sorts of things. But that comes back to tax, and then people, it really is so intricate. But the worst thing is people are disengaged.
Yeah.
And,
Which is sad. Hopefully we can turn it. I still reckon Ruddy, he was probably the first to sort of get that social media out there, get the young people sort of interested.
He had a really, really cool few young guys in his campaign team.
Right. It was good
that
vibe.
worked for him. So Lachlan Harris was one. And he sort of brought that new generation too. But I remember, I was there in 2011, 2012. You wouldn't think, as much as, social media had been around for a good couple of years, the Liberal Party just didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to acknowledge it. If we had a little, sort of tutorial on it, they didn't understand what they were trying to tell you about. And
Classic
so
PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, but we weren't allowed to use it, and, they were afraid of it rather than embracing it, yet the Labor Party were quick to.
Yeah.
And they still are. I think the Labor Party are better at it.
Mandy, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, is that time up already?
I know. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Teach Me in 20. If you did, and if you even just learnt one thing, make sure you subscribe so each week you can learn something new with me. Bye.